So, HMS Renown. And I'm talking about Jackie Fisher's baby again. Not the World War I, World War II battlecruiser. I'm talking about the proto-battlecruiser. I'm talking about the ship which Jackie Fisher really, really loved and tested out all his ideas on. Orion Taylor. I'm a little bit surprised Fisher did not try to acquire when she was sold out of the Iron so as to use his own private yacht. If he'd had the money, he would have. Seriously, if he'd had the money, he would have. Also from Richard Richard Otter 8698. I wonder if they ever called Renown Mrs. Fisher. I'd love to see someone try. There again, knowing Fisher, he'd have laughed it off. Captain Nemo, did you provide extra room on it for use as a flagship, i.e. when designing ship? Yes, well, she's certainly fitted out for a flagship. Not so much extra room as it's how you use the space. So she was designed to be easily equipped with space for dancing, etc. He did some more clearing out, as to be discussed in some later comments, and did a lot of organisation to allow himself space. He also put in extra offices and accommodation in the space for staff. It's an important thing to have those things worked out. Often they would build specific members of a class, if they're building a class of battleships, with the capabilities of having staff support. As you go through the time, as battleships become rarer and more important on their stations when deployed them, they more often than not, more and more of them are going to get used as flagships. So such accommodations become more and more normal in the British practice, but it's not always guaranteed. It's not always guaranteed. Now, Captain Nemo, I'm asking about the physical space for that use as a flagship, as being a reason for why it was continually picked, i.e. layout impacts such a choice. In short, what makes it so much better and different from another regular battleship? What are the changes that Fisher makes to it that suits him so much more? There are some horror stories of battleships Model 2 being used as a communications hub and things being cramped and a mess due to a lack of space, and horror trying to fit extra radios and staff to the vessel didn't go so well. Now, I'm going to get into the student John's comment, but I'm also going to go back to the Captain Nemo comment. So, during the time in Halifax, Fisher had certain vents and bollards removed from the quarterdeck to better facilitate dancing and other entertainments. It was that aspect of the ship that promoted her to the Mediterranean CNC position. Jackie did like entertaining attractive young ladies aboard, clearing the main lower decks just to increase Renown's yacht-like qualities. Now, I guess I know where the young ladies comment is coming from, but with Jackie Fisher, honestly, that wasn't his style. He used entertaining and dancing for politics, not for that. He didn't mind having the young ladies aboard because it kept the young sailors occupied, the young young officers, and he fundamentally believed young officers should get married, mainly because he felt it helped them with the politics and understanding the world better, of the UK better, by having a wife. He was very loyal to his wife, but he loved to dance with queens of England, with ambassadors' wives, with ministers' wives, with all those people who are usually married to people who are not that good at the dancing. Fisher was good at dancing. He didn't use the dancing to get the young ladies. He was dancing with the older ladies. He didn't want an affair with them. Oh, no. He was using it for far more clever tactical reasoning than that. You see, the husbands trusted him with them because the husbands trusted him. And trusted him not to make a move or do anything outward. But that means he built up a very good relationship with them, and he built up a very good relationship with the husbands. And so when he has a problem and he goes to a politician with, I have this problem, I need some funding, or this person's being nasty about me, you can insert the name of the various admirals at various points who go after Fisher. Those people suddenly find themselves in trouble. The people who are attacking Fisher, the problems of Fisher, because he's their friend. This is a time period when making friends has a very real effect. It still has an effect to this day. Making friends, how to win friends and influence people. Well, Fisher worked out that he would do more service politically and strategically and in these posts by being able to entertain than by being able to bore. A simple dinner wasn't enough. Dancing afterwards, drinks on the quarterdeck, cigars, all those things mattered, and he would do it all despite him not liking to imbibe much himself, not liking to smoke much, or at all often. There are some accounts of Fisher trying it in his earlier years, but he doesn't seem to be much of a smoker. And, well, I think he probably stopped. But saying that, he certainly understood the value of entertaining, and he understood the value of looking like you fitted in. And he was an adept political animal, as admirals who are going on to senior ranks need to be. So for him, yes, vents and bollards removing from the quarterdeck to improve the dancing space, good. Invite the young ladies to dance with young officers, excellent. Invite their mothers and fathers, dance with their mothers, keep an eye on the young officers, make sure everyone's entertained, goes away with a great impression of the Royal Navy, great connections made, and you are securing lots of avenues for future necessities. However, let's get back to the physical space. So the horror stories from World War II mostly come from when they're using the older battleships, which have been modernised, which have already had their spaces filled with things like, the modern ranging equipment and extra armour and this, that and the other, which has been added in as they've been rearranged, and that never makes a ship more efficient in space, rearranging it. It always introduces more quirks. Add in radar and things like that and you have even more quirks. And then you have a staff which is trying to coordinate a land battle, especially when they're being used as communications hubs for amphibious operations, and their guns are firing, shaking the ship and shaking all those delicate radios, which means you have to cram them into spaces which are less affected by the firing of the guns. And please note I'm using the phrase less affected, not affected, less affected. And it's a frigging nightmare. It really is. Now, in Fisher's day, well, this telegraphy is pretty much just beginning. Remember, the Russo-Japanese War is going to be the first one that features it really massively in terms of being a reliable, constant communications tool, rather than something which they're hoping to rely on and doesn't always work. So, the big staffs which you see later on haven't really started to develop, because your communications team is your flags and lamps communication team, which mostly are taking advantage of the people who are already aboard ship, because you don't have extra flags assigned for a flagship. You just have to use the signalman aboard the ship. You might have a couple of extra personnel, but it's not really that much, and it's more about resilience of personnel in terms of numbers for eventualities than it is about needing having extra flags to put up, etc. Because they don't have extra rigging for extra flags on a flagship. They just don't. So, what else do you need? Well, what staff officers do you have? You'll have a fleet engineering officer with probably a couple of assistants. You'll have a fleet medical officer. You'll have Admiral's secretary, Admiral's flag lieutenant, and chief of staff. You might have a couple of flag lieutenants. You might have some more assistants on that. You might have a senior signals officer. You might have a fleet gunnery officer on a large enough fleet, a large enough posting to justify it. But often that could be dual rolled with one of the flag lieutenants, who might be a lieutenant commander gunnery or something like that. So yeah, you are talking about extra officer space. You're talking about a few extra crew. It's going to be not many, but it's going to be significant in its own right. So you need, the space you're talking about including in this period is very different than the space we're talking about today. When we're talking about today and putting in a CIC, we're talking about hundreds of people. A good example is, our good examples are Albion and Bulwark and the Royal Navy. They're the amphibious landing platform docks. Okay, so amphibious ships for landing marines, etc. Huge landing craft, huge CICs, huge command centers. And those command centers, they are hopping. They are absolutely full to burst. They have hundreds of screens in them. They will have legal professionals looking at them, they'll have comms teams, they'll have various intelligence units, they'll have logistics, they'll have everyone you can possibly imagine that you would need on a staff will probably be there. Because they're coordinating a very complicated ballet. And it's a ballet which is requiring both real-time choreography and real-time direction. And real-time audience engagement and understanding its effect. So, it's a lot of people, talking to a lot of people. It's a space which has to be incredibly well organized. And there are structures and positions in it. So, there are places for senior officers to sit where they can see the entire room. And it's also one of the things about it in the terms of this sort of command center is that there's the ship CIC area which is actually connected to it but offset from it for the captain to run their ship but also be able to be involved in a conversation when they need to be. And they have their own area. And it's amazingly thought through. It has to be. But it also has a lot more processing power in it than they used to send, well, the rockets to the moons. Now, Matthew Keeling, if you want an example of how scary Renown would have been at launch, compare it to the French armor cruiser that is a near contemporary Portfolio. Renown has the same top speed, dramatically longer range at higher cruise speed, heavier armor, and is massively more heavily armed. Yes, she is twice the size, but still capable of making the seaways totally unsafe for the commerce raiders of the era, given her high cruise speed and range allowing her to appear pretty much anywhere. Then compare it to the also contemporary German Kaiser Frederick third-class battleships, who cannot catch her in the open, but are similarly heavily armed and cannot be certain of winning a 1v1 fight against her. These same characteristics would have all served her well as an ambassadorial ship and royal yacht, as she could reach distant locations quickly, make a very strong statement, and still not be too overtly aggressive a threat due to her lighter armament. Yes, due to the fact that the Royal Navy would go, well, she's one of our smaller battleships. But I would add this. She's a second-class battleship, but not really a second-class battleship. And I would also say that her strengths versus armoured cruisers extend to grey area operations. In that if she'd bumped into the Portfolio before operations began, she'd have been okay. The Portfolio would have been in serious trouble. Oh, did we bump into you? Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. Did our rambout accidentally hit you? Oh, that's terrible. You're now sinking. Oh, we'll man the boats. We'll recover you. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Richard Guts. I don't think so. Jackie Fisher liked her so much that he brought her with him from the Middle American station when he took control of the Mediterranean fleet. Much to complaint to the Admiralty because they believed Renown was not powerful enough for a frontline service. Depends on which section of Admiralty. There are some who don't. I think I just made a weird noise with the glass of milk. I do apologise, but yeah, it's been a day where I need milk. The relative compared to the larger battleship's speed and manoeuvrability were an influence on how he wanted Dreadnought to be. Fisher originally wanted Dreadnought to be armed with the same 10-inch guns as Renown, and was only persuaded to change when it was shown that Neo 12-inch guns had a matching rate of fire. Now, that was an interesting point. I would say that, as I'd already sort of mentioned that to an extent in the video, but the debate in the Admiralty was a debate, but Fisher got what he wanted and was always going to get what he wanted. He was senior enough that, frankly, what he said as flagship was going to be a flagship, and someone else going, but we've got this new class of battleships which are far more powerful, and one of which we've outfitted as a flagship, you should take that. And he looked and went, no. He had a good reason for not wanting it, though. He was worried about the reliability of the engines, and it did take them about a year or so to get those working properly. And if you look at the timeline, you can work out exactly which class I'm talking about, but because I haven't got to them in the key ship series yet, I'm not going to talk about it too much. Apart from the often repeated, but sadly not true 10-inch gun myth for the Dreadnought, you do raise some of what I've discussed in the video. The debate was 12-inch versus 14-inch for the Dreadnought. As much as the 10-inch 32 had been a good gun over its era, the reality was Fisher would have told you once you get to 45 caliber X, the 10-inch doesn't provide a viable product as the rate of fire is too slow for a cruiser and its shell doesn't do enough damage for a battleship. It's the problem with the 10-inch. As I said, it's a sweet spot, but it's a sweet spot which doesn't work once you get above a certain size. It was Fisher's own comprehensive testing, ordered in 1904, which put the nail in the coffin, where the myth has some basis that 10-inch was originally included in the potential guns for the Invincibles, but Fisher himself erased it and went with, no, we'll go with a 12-inch. Because these ships need to be as powerful as we can make them. Rich Cuts. Okay, I just remember reading it somewhere, but the source I read could easily be wrong. To tell the truth, or the source I read could easily be wrong. It's a very attractive story, and when you consider the testing, it's very easy to put together. Because he's got testing in 1904, it's still being considered for the Invincibles, so therefore it was obvious it would be considered for the Dreadnought. You know, it's obviously it's still on the table, and it's part of the discussion. It isn't, but it's a very easy connection to make. It's a very easy connection to suppose that just a document which puts on the table is missing. It's not. It's just not there. And there are some solid reasons for why it's not. For starters, if you launch Dreadnought with a 10-inch gun when everyone else has got 12-inch guns on their battleships, and you're going to go to the delay of waiting for those 10-inch guns to be ready, because you've got 12-inch guns ready off the shelf, you've got 14-inch ones under construction, you haven't got any 10-inch 45s in a similar position, so you've got to design them, so that's going to delay you building that ship. For a gun less powerful than the one you've already got available, or the one which you could have in service a lot quicker. 14-inch is probably going to be a 6-month delay to Dreadnought. Especially if you go 14-inch triple turrets. 10-inch, that could be a full year delay. Is it worth it to delay it for a full year for 10-inch guns? No. It's not going to help you, and it's not going to make the Dreadnought any better. You might as well go to 12-inch. To tell the truth, most of what I know about Jackie Fisher is from Dreadnought and Castles of Steel, both by Robert K. Massey. To be fair, the 10-inch thing may not have been his. Brought a paperback version of Dreadnought was 30 years ago. Saw it in a book review on C-SPAN. Wore it out and had it bound as a hardcover. Now I just read the ebook version. I recommend Admirals by Andrew Lambert if you haven't had it. That's got a good section on Jackie Fisher in it. and it's got a good section about lots of other admirals. It's one of my favourite books. I would love there to be a US Navy equivalent to come out, but most people writing about US Navy admirals do it in singles and focus on an individual. There's the Revolt of the Admirals, but that doesn't really do the same sort of profile, like where it's sort of each chapter is a profile of a different admiral, with Andrew's book. But also there's a few other countries I'd like to see it done on. Russia, France, Spain, Italy, Japan. Again, this is a project which I've got in my mind to do at some point, but to do it properly I would need to learn to speak and read fluently Russian, Japanese, Spanish, Italian, French, German. And I sometimes seem to get the pronunciations wrong in English, and this is after speaking it for years. But more seriously, learning languages. It's something I'm trying to get back into, after not having done it since, well, joys of dyslexia. I was told as I was dyslexic in my own language, there was no point in me even trying foreign languages, so I didn't for my GCSEs, which meant I stopped learning foreign languages at 13. It's my school's learned opinion. Basically, I had trouble with French, but I was quite enjoying German, and Latin was one of my favourite topics. But life happens, you make decisions, you do, you live with it, and you grow. In this case, I'm getting back into it now. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and as always with the case with these videos, at the end will come up a link to the original HMS Renown video. If you haven't watched it, you might enjoy it. And there's also going to be a link to the Keyship series and the Keyship Common Response series at the end as well. So, if you enjoy those, thank you very much for watching. Take care. Ooh, G3's coming up. Ooh, I think that'll be Thursday's video this week. I really do.